Good morning. My coffee cup is very full. Yes, I'm drinking out of a mug with my picture on it, making a goofy face. Wow, look at my hair this morning. I promise I brushed my hair this morning, but it's very long. I'm gonna ignore it. I hope you will too. Let me pull up chat here, just in case anybody decides to chat. I'm a couple minutes late. I had some technical issues getting my camera working. Good morning. First here, per usual. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, I had a couple of technical issues getting in this morning, getting my camera to connect to the streaming service. But now I'm here. You're here. Welcome. Good morning or afternoon or evening. I don't know what part of the world you may be in, or if you're watching this on the thing. Okay. Well, first of all, interesting footlicker, interesting screen name. What is my opinion on alien encounters and shamanism? I have never had an alien encounter, but um, and I don't know if I know people directly who have, but what I will say is this, and I don't, I don't want to give too uninformed an opinion on alien encounters, but there are many shamanic cultures who have stories about coming from the quote unquote star people, right? People from the stars coming down. And in fact, those being the ancestors of the tribe or even all of humanity. Um, and speaking to a friend not that long ago who regularly attends a large gathering of healers, mostly shamanic healers, that's in the American Southwest. Oh, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, party people. Uh, I am far from a party person, but my birthday is coming up, so well, we're a month away. But but uh, so anyway, this friend of mine who is a shaman who is also indigenous attends this big gathering of healers in the American Southwest pretty much yearly. And she has related to me that the in the past few years, the biggest topic of conversation is star people. So um, there certainly seems to be something there. It's not something in my experience, so I can't talk about it too directly. This is your form of partying these days. Yeah, yeah, me too. I wasn't much of a party guy when I was younger in school or anything like that. I'm much more intimate, one-on-one or, small groups kind of thing is more my jam. Not that I haven't enjoyed a good party. True story. Um, Many moons ago, before I had children and everything, so more than 20 years ago now, I actually was an editor at a fashion magazine and got to go to some pretty amazing parties. In fact, we had a party and it was huge. It was a restaurant. We had the whole, really fancy restaurant. We had sponsors who brought us uh, a truckload of alcohol, basically, with an ice luge. We had an ice luge with a penguin on the end of it, and it was crazy, crazy. Live band. The New England Patriots cheerleaders were there. There was a fashion show, so there were like all of these models and stuff. It is a way different life than I lead these days. I'm off in the woods now. Um, so I was speaking just briefly. Somebody had asked me about my opinion on alien encounters and shamanism. One of the things I'll say about that is that I think that there's this overlap. There's this real overlap between and this is something that Graham Hancock has talked about. He's an author that I like a whole lot. And he talks about how these stories from old of fairy abductions, right? So, you might think about fairies from the Tinkerbell perspective, from that sort of thing. But um, the way that they're described historically is that they're like they're more like people than like little beings with wings and that sort of thing, and that they're they abduct people and take them off to another land where they're magical things and all of this stuff. And there are some very, very interesting similarities with between those old stories and what we hear about alien stuff. So, my personal opinion is that the universe is, there are billions of galaxies or trillions of galaxies, I guess, at least a couple trillion galaxies, each one with billions of stars. And almost every single one we look at, we find planets. So, highly unlikely that we are, and I'm pretty sure, from a shamanic perspective, we're not the only intelligent biological beings in this universe. However, from a shamanic perspective, there are so many layers of reality, many, many universes, many, many things that some alien, quote unquote, alien encounters might be interdimensional beings or spiritual beings, what we consider spiritual beings, coming into or being viewed from our perspective. But I do think that there is technology out there that happen, around the Earth that is beyond current human technological understanding. So, what's my opinion of CE5? When I connect with nature spirits, they show up as stars in the sky. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know a whole lot. CE5, for those people who don't know, um, stands for close. I think close encounters of the fifth kind. So we know like the fourth kind is when you have actual physical contact. The fifth kind is when the contact is initiated by people. And I know there are a ton of people experimenting with very specific protocols for doing that. And I think, I think I have this person's name right, but Dr. Stephen Greer is sort of at the forefront of that stuff. And they've been able to, gather people together and do work and have lights in the sky show up and that sort of thing. Um, so I don't know much about it, so I don't have a very informed opinion, but it seems quite fascinating to me. And recently, I was watching something recently where they they had this man who had a bunch of encounters, and they took him out to an area where he'd had a lot of encounters, and they hooked him up to some EEG equipment, and they were like watching his brain states, and he was going into this sort of very shamanic state of mind. And when he did that, there were really strange lights in the sky that they did catch on camera. So there does seem to be there seems to be some connection there. I have not done much exploration there. There's so much to explore. um, Alina, I don't know who that. Yeah, I don't know who that is. Worked at the pyramids and has lots of knowledge. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about. I don't know who that person is. I'd be curious. I'm curious about everything. So, yeah. Anyway, for this kind of thing can be challenging for someone like myself who has ADHD. I'm very often going off on tangents. The topic for today is actually regarding deepening your spiritual practice. And so I'm going to guide us back there, hopefully gently. I'm going to guide us back to deepening spiritual practice. And so I need to talk about what that means a little bit. And I'll preface that by saying, um, I'm not going to prescribe anybody's belief systems here or anybody's spiritual practice, but what I want to do is give some pointers to no matter what your oh, thank you. Well, I'll only say that it's because folks come on and bring up interesting stuff, and so thank you guys, and thank you to the person calling themselves Footlicker. That's definitely the most interesting moniker I've had commenting during one of these talks. So thank you for bringing me off on an enjoyable tangent. So anyway, you know, I don't proselytize. Nobody I know who is shamanic proselytizes. I'm not saying, when I'm talking about like, oh, this is how to deepen your spiritual practices, I'm not going to recommend to anyone, unless it is your calling, to go out and study shamanism and learn how to journey or whatever. If it's your path, it's your path, and that's great. But if your path is something else, that's also great, right? And hopefully, I hope for me, people who take that perspective, I take that perspective because I find other people who take that perspective to be very refreshing in this world. So many people um, claim to know the truth, capital T, the truth, right? And the universe, like our experience of the universe, is completely subjective. Every single one of us has a completely different experience of reality. And that's the point to me. That's the point of us incarnating into these different egos, into these different experiences, into these different body minds, is to have different experiences and to have different interpretations and to have different. This is regardless of what anybody believes is factually correct or historically correct or um you know uh that kind of thing. It was really interesting the other day. I was watching a video that the only person I knew in the video was Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist. But there was another physicist on, and there was a woman who is a neuroscientist, and then somebody else, but all scientists. And the physicist, who was not Neil deGrasse Tyson, was arguing that free will doesn't exist because there is nothing in physics that explains free will. And that set me back a little bit, right? Like we can't there aren't physical laws that describe free will. Okay. But I can you're using the wrong tool to measure something. You're looking through the wrong lens. So, and my sort of tongue in cheek comparison was that's like saying the oceans don't exist because I have a rectal thermometer and it won't tell me the depth of the ocean. It's the wrong tool, right? I have to use other equipment. There's not even sonar that can look at complete the deepest parts of the ocean, um, without some sort of submersible, right? So we need to, you know, look at things through the right lens. But so there are people out there, this person in particular, and Neil deGrasse Tyson to me is not one of those people. He has, in my experience, when he's had conversations with people, he is very open to learning, and that is the true meaning of skepticism. Skepticism doesn't mean I automatically disbelieve everything. It means I'll take it in and I will look at it, and I will look at it through the correct, hopefully through the correct lens, and then make up my mind. But it means I don't automatically believe anything. It doesn't mean I automatically disbelieve everything. it means, I will either find proof of the thing or I won't, you know. And in science, the other thing that gets me sometimes about science and scientific method, and I studied scientific method a little bit, and I took research methods in grad school, um, is you can't prove a negative, right? So science cannot ever disprove anything. All it can do is say we have not currently found evidence of something. So anybody out there who thinks that, science disproves the um, spirituality in any way, or science disproves the existence of a creator, or science disproves that's non-scientific. That is not scientific method. So for this person to say, I don't think he was actually saying that free will doesn't exist. I think he said he can't account for free will. But the implication was that there's no such thing as free will because he can't account for it. Um, Maybe someday, 1,000 years from now, there will be some complete physics explanation of free will, but I doubt it. And the other thing that happens very frequently, as in my experience, as physicists, particularly nuclear physicists, quantum physicists, these people start to explore the underlying physical reality, which is not physical at all. They start to speak in terms that resemble spirituality. It was I've mentioned this guy before, but Erwin Schrödinger, who said the number of consciousnesses in the universe is one. This is a quantum physicist who has you know come to some realization that we are all part of the same consciousness. That's a very spiritual concept, right? And things like the observer effect on particles, that we can look at photons or electrons in a certain way and have them behave differently and have them change backwards in time, right? Depending on how we observe them and measure them. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of hubris. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't bash science either, but I do realize, it's funny because I was talking about there are problems in science, in certain fields of science, and science isn't like a thing. There's a scientific method, and science includes you know eh, almost an infinite number of disciplines, right? And so to say that science says blah blah blah. No, some researchers using scientific method came to certain conclusions. The other thing that happens very frequently um, is that you'll read about science. So you'll read something that comes out in CNN or whatever. Unless you're reading the journals in which people come to certain conclusions and you look at their research, um, the way the media reports on science is really bad, really, really bad. In fact, I often, if I read something that, about some scientific discovery, whatever, I will go look at the research paper. In fact, I keep a subscription, I pay for a subscription to research journals, a research journal service, so that I can go look up the actual articles and read the research. I have seen media reports on research that were saying the exact opposite of what the science was saying. Like they said, science proves blah, blah, blah. And when I read they're like, oh no, that is the exact opposite of what this paper said. So a lot of what we get as science is reporting on science. But yeah, there is a lot of hubris. And it's funny because I wrote something about this one time, and a friend of mine who is an avowed um, atheist, but materialist atheist, doesn't believe there's any spiritual reality whatsoever. Um, uh, said, "Oh yeah, well, I forget exactly." Oh, a friend of mine commented on what I had written, and he commented like, "Oh, something along the line, not in a mean way or whatever, but like, what do you know?" And the guy he was commenting on, he didn't know my friend was a PhD in neuroscience, and literally the smartest human being I know, and worked for NASA, and works in some really amazing, doing some really amazing tech stuff with like prosthetics and things like that, and has got a PhD in science, in a field of science, so he knows a lot about research and stuff. So it was just very interesting and funny. Yeah, I mean, I'm a strong believer in free will, and the interesting thing, the interesting thing about free will is, yes, we are making choices, and we're free to make choices. We are not conscious of the choice making process that goes on in our head. What we can see from neuroscience, I've gone way off the path here of spiritual practice, but we'll get back to it, I promise. What we know from functional MRI research is that when somebody makes a decision, you have somebody, pick left or right, pick red or green or whatever, the unconscious parts of the brain light up something like 325 milliseconds or to 500 milliseconds. Here's Phoebe. She always makes an appearance, doesn't she? She's like, she knows. She's like, I'm on camera. I want people to see my tail. Um, so the unconscious parts of the brain, the emotional parts of the brain, light up almost half a second, up to 10 seconds in some cases, before the frontal cortex, before you know that you've made up your mind. The frontal cortex says, "Oh, I'm making this decision consciously," and that's not really happening. But that doesn't mean we don't have free will. We're still making choices. We over identify with the conscious part of the brain. But spiritual people who practice depth meditation, shamanic journeying, people who use entheogens, they get a sense of what's in there, right? For most people, on a day-to-day basis, we don't there's no, and this is how I'm going to bring it back to deepening spiritual practice, I promise. um, Most people don't get a sense of what's in there, and our day-to-day lives, and sometimes we're afraid of what's in there because we have what's called the shadow, right? And I'll talk about shadow work a little bit. I've talked about shadow work a lot. I've done a lot of videos, I've written articles, I have a course out there on Udemy on shadow work. Uh, it is critically important to anybody doing spiritual work, critically. And I don't care how you do shadow work. You don't have to do my course. You don't have to read anything I've written. Find some way to start integrating with your shadow. Um, I'll tell you why in a second. I'm gonna have a sip of coffee out of the mug with my face on it. If anybody's watched the series The Office, this mug is a replication of the mug that comes from an episode of The Office. Um, and my children made that for me. When they were younger. Now they're like. Actually, I will ask. Sorry, I have to move my chair around a little bit. Um, I will ask everybody for a favor this morning. How's that? My daughter is taking her driving tests today at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So if everybody could kindly send calming, positive thoughts in the way of my daughter, whether she passes or not, she's very nervous about it. I talked with her for quite a while last night. Um, right after this, I'm going to end this on time because I need to get on video chat with her and do. Um, we're gonna do I'm gonna do some breathing exercises with her to get her body nice and calm before she goes out for her driving test. But anyway, positive thoughts. So my daughters are older, they're driving, they've got boyfriends, they've got jobs, so but when they were little, we used to binge watch, not binge watch completely, but we would pick a series like The Office and then watch it together, watch a couple episodes every night. So that's not really binge watching, I guess, but we'd watch the whole series through. So we did that with The Office, and then we did that with Parks and Rec, which was just a hilarious show. And then I got a cameo for their birthday one year of the guy who played Jerry on Parks and Rec. So he actually did a video like birthday greeting for them, which was pretty amazing. And what a great guy. He was so generous with his time, and sang happy birthday and talked about their school and all kinds of stuff. So it was just lovely. Anyway, so that's why I have a mug with my face, making a goofy face on it, because of course my daughters would pick that. They're hilarious. So I'll get to shadow work in a minute, because that is an important aspect to deepening your spiritual practice. So one thing, one thing I recommend to everyone, it doesn't matter whether you're spiritual or not, or what your spiritual path is to have a daily meditation practice. Why do I don't make a whole lot of recommendations. Why do I recommend this to everyone as a universal? The reason is, and you can go to the research. There are thousands of articles. I think I did a search years ago, and there were like 4,000 research studies that came up on the benefits of meditation. Meditation is so good for you. It's one of the best things you can do. It so you could list out the benefits of it. There, reduces stress, reduces inflammation. It affects the body. Meditation affects the body profoundly. This is where we go to the mind body spirit interface directly. Okay, so just on a physical level, reduces stress, boosts your immune system, reduces inflammation. Meditation also helps social interaction for who knows what reason, right? They'll do more and more research on meditation and find out more and more about it. What I'm not going to prescribe today is how you meditate, because there are millions of different methods out there, and what's for me might not be right for anybody else. I did a program not that long ago that was, I forget how long. It was like a month long or something like that. And every few days, you did a meditation practice every single day. An hour or two actually of meditation practice every day, but different practices. And the idea was to sample them, to find the one that worked the best for you, because the research that this person was doing found that not everybody responds the same way. So find a method that works for you. Now, the number one complaint I get from people who say, I recommend meditation for everyone, even if you're not spiritual. You do not have to meditate in a spiritual way, although there is a risk that you might get in touch with your spirituality if you meditate. Not a bad risk in my mind. But the number one complaint I get from people is, I can't meditate because I can't stop my thoughts. And my response to that is, well, congratulations, you're still alive. And as long as you're alive, you will never quite completely stop your thoughts. You will have thoughts. And that's not necessarily the point of meditation, to stop your thoughts. It's a side effect. The more you meditate, your thoughts will start to slow down. There will be more space between your thoughts, that sort of thing. But if you sit down and you're like, oh, I can't stop my thoughts, I can't meditate, well, you're not the Buddha yet. Okay, so that's okay, right? That's like saying, I can't paint because I'm not Picasso, or I can't cook because I'm not Gordon Ramsay, or I can't, I don't know, whatever. You're not an expert at something that you have just started. So it's fine. You'll get there. You'll get to a point where your thoughts will slow down. They will never completely stop until you're dead. And even then, you'll still have consciousness and thoughts will continue just in a very different way. Um, so don't worry about it. So just sit and meditate. And there's all kinds of meditation. You can meditate on the tip of your nose, on your breath. The simplest form of meditation is find a point of focus and bring your focus back to it. It will aid your concentration. As somebody with ADHD, meditation is critical to my actual daily functioning, right? My ability to focus on one thing at a time. Meditation will also take you deeper into your spiritual practice, which may already include meditation. So if and I'll give lots of suggestions, or I'll give a number of suggestions here. So um, this will be this will be probably more suggestions than any of these other ones that I've done. If your daily spiritual practice already includes meditation, or if you meditate daily already, my suggestion is to either in addition to that practice, or um, replace that practice every once in a while. Try a different form of meditation and see where it takes you. If you don't like it as well, return to your regular form of meditation. And I do, like, I draw a big distinction between for those who are on here who have experience with shamanic practice, shamanic journeying. I do draw a distinction between shamanic journeying and meditation. In shamanic journeying, the brain is much more active and in a very different state than you're in when you're meditating. Um, so I don't really consider those things the same, even though outwardly they might look the same. You might, if you journey with your eyes closed and you know but they don't necessarily, there's not necessarily overlap there. Your mind is super active. It's just not in your body when you're journeying, when you're doing shamanic journeying. So you're detaching from your body, and you can meditate on your body. You can focus in on your body. I've done lots of um, like qigong. I practiced qigong for a long time, and martial arts, and there's a lot of body oriented meditation. The body can become a point of focus. Like I said, you can focus on the tip of your nose, or on your third eye. So then you're doing energy body work. And by the way, um, I'm working on a course. I'm working on a month-long course of energy body work, because I've polled people in lots of different places and said, "What do you want me to teach?" And the vast majority of people, um, it's not that I won't teach other things too, but the majority of people, like overwhelming majority of people, are interested in energy body work. So I'm putting together a very powerful, new, and it'll be completely unique from anything anybody's ever experienced, course on energy body work, which will be like, you'll get an email every day that will give you a little exercise to do, and there will be like a Zoom meeting once a week, and then some videos that will take you through exercise. It'll be pretty comprehensive and very affordable as well. I'm not, it's not about making a lot of money, but whatever. Um, Yeah, it's true. Yes, journey is much more active. Yeah. So chakra aligning meditation is one. So that's, working with the energy body, and that using that as a point of focus, and it's a really good one. And I did when I was in college. Oh my gosh. Um, I graduated from college 30 years ago. So when I was in college 30 something years ago, I studied tantric Buddhism, which was, you know, people hear tantra, they necessarily think sex. That's actually not it. Yes, there are tantric sexual practices, but tantra as an overall set of practices. The one I was practicing was from Tibetan Buddhism, so there wasn't a lot of sexual practice there, but it was a lot of energy body work, and that's true even if you do tantric sexual practices. You're going to be doing a lot with the energy body. Good morning. And I owe you yes, I'm glad you caught it. And I owe you an email for sure. I did get your email, and I promise I will respond to you. And seeing you here reminds me that I reminds me to respond to you. So I will try to respond to you today if I can. I promise, because we're gonna have hopefully have you on as a guest as well. And by the way, if anybody has anything like that they I can, have more than one person on uh, these videos. So I haven't yet, but in the future, it'd be really great to have some guests on here. I'll try to bring some people in too, friends of mine and stuff who have some interesting. Oh, you too. Thank you for being understanding. um, I can be really one of the things I'm trying to get better at. Maybe it should be if I don't have any New Year's resolutions. Although I've lost 10 pounds. I don't know if you probably can't tell just by looking at my face. Although um, I'm eating healthier and you know just not trying to do anything specific, but I've lost 10 pounds from changing my diet up. But my New Year's resolution maybe should be to be better at returning communication. I'm terrible at it. Uh, but yeah, we'll chat, and I am excited to learn from you because I know you have um, lots. I'm sure you have lots and lots of interesting things to share, and so I get to do one of these and learn. So I mean, I always learn because people bring up cool stuff and mention cool stuff, but yeah, I agree generally. Not generally. I agree specifically and completely that if you've actually done meditation, you can't claim it has no effect on you, because it does. It will affect you whether you whether you want it to or not. It's like, um, I drank a liter of alcohol and I claim it has no effect on me. um, that's just not true. Maybe you're not consciously aware enough to notice when small changes are happening. But if you meditate for any period of time, I don't mean like you meditate for an hour. I mean like you meditate every day, even 5 minutes, meditate every day, 5 minutes for a month, you will change. You can't help it. Um, yeah, and I do think that journeying is very different than meditating. It's super active, where meditation is much more passive. So I don't know. I guess on one hand, we could say that journeying and meditation are sort of like the masculine, feminine aspects, the yin yang aspects of spirit, or could be spiritual practice. Um, Although you can have very active meditation too, but it's still very journeying. I still categorize as something very differently. So one of the things I can suggest people can try, if you are a meditator, if you're somebody who meditates and you want to deepen that practice, there are a couple of things I'll suggest, because that's the topic of today's talk. One is practice forms of meditation that go deeply inward, go in, right? As opposed to outward focus. Now, there are plenty of meditation practices that have outward focus, and they are fine, right? You can stare at a yantra, you can chant. That's sort of inward practice. But I'm talking about going deeper than the body, deeper than the energy body, go beyond that until you can't go anywhere anymore. And you'll find a void there, but it's hard to just words try to words fail. Any words that I use are inadequate to describe what's there, but you'll reach this point of void, or you'll reach a point of spiritual light. You can have both of those experiences that you are connected to everything, and everything is a part of you, and you're really at that point you're touching your own divinity. And this is an important sort of segue into what do I mean by deepening your spiritual practice. I've listened to so many guided meditations and hypnosis tapes and all that sort of thing. Where like, go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. What does that mean? Well, oftentimes that means relax more, right? Go deeper, relax more, lose touch with the interface of your body, right? So, not to say you're going to lose touch with your body, but you don't start to feel your body as a separate thing from the universe, and you start to lose your edges. We'll put it that way, right? Your boundaries, your definitions. Now, spiritual boundaries are good. I'm just talking about the meditative experience where you go in, even though you're going in, your universe is expanding, right? You're now sort of containing the universe, and things are happening through you, right? So really getting in touch with your awareness, that is what you are at your core, but also touching on your connection. You're a part of, if you believe there is a, the one mind, the I almost hesitate to use the word God, but I think that's what most people use in the Western world. The oneness, the one intelligence, the one consciousness, the God source is another great word I like to use. Um, if you believe that exists, that source exists, that it is, behind, around, and in everything, you cannot be separate from that. Separation from source is an illusion. And the deeper we go into ourselves, the more we recognize that on an experiential level. You can intellectually think about that. Oh yeah, yeah, I know I'm part of everything. Um, but going deep, deep, deep when you meditate, that will take you to a place where that is reality. You don't experience anything as being different. Some people call this ego death. I don't use that term because that denotes that the ego ceases to exist, and it doesn't. It's still there. You just don't identify with it as much anymore, right? Let's see what we have. Yeah. So interestingly, a very similar thing happened to me. I was a lifelong meditator. I had been diagnosed with PTSD and had serious depression and anxiety and all kinds of stuff going on. And I was meditating every day to try to help myself through this. And um, I was meditating one day, and I heard, and I remember I was sitting on the floor, and I heard it sounded like there was a male voice, standing about 5 feet in front of me. On my left side, the voice was coming from here, very forceful, said, "You need to learn shamanism." And I didn't know anything about shamanism at that point. I mean, I knew the word, but I didn't know what it entailed. I didn't know what a shamanic journey was. I didn't know what a power animal was. It was not a very, I mean, I meditated a lot, but I wasn't a very spiritual person. I hadn't explored the depths of my spirit. I just meditated to meditate because it made me feel good, and gave me a way to transform my consciousness and sort of explore reality a little bit. So yeah, I mean, it opened me up to spirit and kicked off what we call initiation in shamanism. And initiation isn't necessarily what people think it is. Somebody asked me on one of my YouTube videos recently, like, I want to know, who was your teacher and who initiated you? It's not how shamanic initiation works. Yes, I have been through, I don't know, dozens of initiation ceremonies by, people, primarily my main shamanic teacher, but by other teachers as well. But that's not what initiation is. It's not the ceremony. Initiation in shamanism, spirit initiates you. And there may not be ceremony involved. Most of my initiations, most of the, did not happen as part of ceremonies. Although I've been through dozens of ceremonies, but the initiation is, your life falls apart. That's the best way I can describe it. I told my teacher one time, I'm like, I've got a metaphor for initiation. It's like I put my life in one of those snow globes, the globes that they sell with the tourist stuff in Las Vegas with snow for whatever reason, shake it up. So you put your life in one of those snow globes, and then you go to the hardware store and you put it in one of those paint can shakers that mixes the paint and just shake the crap out of it. And that's what initiation is for me, for many people. That's what shamanic initiation is like. And that's why I say, I don't preach shamanism. I don't say shamanism is the path for everyone, because it's not. Some people are not equipped. If you go through shamanic initiation, you can bet that you are equipped to handle it. It might feel like you're not. It will feel like you're not equipped for it. You're supposed to break down. You're supposed to go through some shit, pardon my French. You're supposed to go through some stuff and be broken apart. So if anybody's familiar with tarot, I always think of the Tower card, right? The Tower card and the Death card, right? So the Tower card is about, people are, oh, it's destruction and the tower's being hit by lightning and it's on fire and somebody's falling out the window. That's initiation. That all has to happen so the new can come in, right? If I wanted to if I wanted to have a new house, I love my house. If I wanted to have a new house right here, I would have to tear this house down first, right? Tear it apart, leave nothing left. That's what initiation is. That's what it's doing. It's preparing you. It is starting you by creating a situation or many situations that you are forced to grow spiritually out of. That's what spiritual initiation is like. Yeah, so that is that's a good energy body exercise as well. So focus. So energy will flow wherever attention goes. That's a principle. So if you focus on you place your attention on your hands or on your tip of your nose or whatever, the more you focus on that, yes, your mind will quiet down, but your energy will also go there. And this is a lot of energy healers, or pretty much all energy healers, if they're doing something with hands on and they're focused on their hands, their energy plus whatever they're channeling, whether it's Reiki energy or some other form of energy, is going there because that's where the focus is. Now, here's something that you can try as well. Place your focus on something that, or try to focus entirely on something that is not a part of your body and feel it. Right? So I'll grab something. Oh gosh. So here's a bunch of bananas. So pick off a banana, if you had some bananas or whatever. Pick off a banana and focus on feeling that banana like it was your hand, right? So again, now we're reaching out a little bit as opposed to going inward. Our energy is being put into that banana, but you'll get to the point where you can feel the banana, right? This is the Force. This is Jedi school, folks. This is using the Force. Reach out with your feelings, right? A lot of that stuff that Lucas wrote in the Star Wars stuff, the Jedi stuff came from Eastern. A lot of the Eastern stuff that he had studied. Okay. Yeah. 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 It can be. Yeah. It can be horrendous. Excellent. So Yeah, so in the middle of initiation, it can feel really bad. What happens what has happened for me, um, now, when initiation happens now, and they're a little bit fewer and far between, but when stuff in my life starts to break down, fall apart, whatever, it happens from time to time. Um, instead of me falling apart, I go, oh, another initiation. I wonder what will come out of this, right? So I can face it with some degree of um, understanding, and that can be really helpful. Yeah, so you can reach out with all of your senses and start to smell and taste. Um, so give it a try, like just as an interesting experiment in meditation. You can reach out, and this is, the US government, well, lots of governments experimented with psychic, and still do to this day. Still going on. There's still budget for it. There's also hidden budgets and stuff. But there are many governments that experimented with psychic phenomenon. And why? Because they wanted to spy on, if you could have a psychic spy, right? If you could have somebody who could project their mind into, a missile silo in Russia from the US, that's the safest way of spying, right? You don't have to infiltrate. You don't have to. And psychic spies have been used for a very long time. And I think it was actually like the program for that. It was called remote viewing is the term for it. Now you can read all kinds of stuff. There's lots of declassified information about it. There's lots of classified information still about it. And the U.S. government, anyway, I think their position today is that nothing ever came from it. But Jimmy Carter, when he was president, used remote viewers to find a spy plane that had um, crashed in Africa, and they didn't know where it was. And this was before like really good satellites, and there was no GPS, and all kinds of stuff. They found it. These psychic spies found the plane. He made a public statement about it, and then they were out. They were outed. So yeah, remote viewing. Yep. And so it's interesting. Remote viewing, the way that it was done, had these like really strict protocols. You had to like work up to all of this stuff. And I was like, I read about it. I read about what some of the protocols were and how they train people. And even gave it a shot one time. I tried one of the remote viewing protocols, and had some pretty accurate results. I was able to draw a target that I hadn't seen. Um, and uh, Somebody stated recently that all of these protocols were put in place to essentially bore the crap out of the conscious mind, and so that the remote viewers would just drop into theta state, and start to be able to pick stuff up. Um, with shamanic journeying, I have been able to um, even map out a city that I haven't been to before, and haven't looked at a map of. Like, I was able to draw a map of a city in Sweden one time for somebody, and who was looking for something, and place things in relation to each other, and tell her where to go for the thing she was looking for. Um, Strange experience. I didn't really know how that was going to work out, but um, yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, shocking, because you don't like the remote viewing protocols. Like, you don't know, like, you're drawing, right? You're drawing something, and then you're labeling, and then you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, I got 95 or something percent. I forget what you have to get for them to consider it a hit, but it has to be something like 90% accurate. But you got to figure, if there's any accuracy at all, like, that's pretty significant, right? Um, so It it would be interesting, like, to train remote viewers to do middle world journeys to get their information because, um, I essentially think they're doing something very similar. They're sending their consciousness out into the middle world, which is the middle world is the spiritual overlay of the physical world, and you can observe, physical things that are going on. Um, However, the ethics of shamanism kind of prevents spying, at least in the school that I was taught. Um, if the government was actually able to use remote viewers, do you think that would have an effect on the people in doing, i.e., doing things with negative intentions isn't good for you? Um, yeah, I mean, so we're talking like karma, maybe. Oh, and somebody else brought up karmic laws. Yeah, yeah. So, uh, a lot of remote viewing was done for experimental purposes, and so there's not really necessarily a negative connotation to that, or finding a downed plane. But the using using the skills of remote viewing, remote projecting the mind to say, and I think this is possible, and I know that there are certainly written accounts of stuff like this, but like using using your spirituality to like kill or cause somebody harm, it could definitely have negative repercussions, and I don't just mean karmic. I think on your psyche, because we're most people are hardwired not to harm other human beings. We're tribal. Humans are tribal species. We only survived in groups. If you were exiled from your tribe, that was a death sentence, right? So I think doing things to harm other humans harms our psyche, which is why people get PTSD from war, not just because horrible things were done to them, but because they witness other humans doing horrible things to other human beings, and they are forced to do horrible things to other human beings. Um, there's a really interesting book by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. I actually went to a lecture by him and read his book. It's called On Killing. He was a psychologist for the Army, taught at West Point, and did a lot of research on and what they found from doing all this research and experimentation. You have two armies facing each other, right, on the battlefield, like from the Revolutionary War period, and they've got rifles and they're pointing at each other. Well, the hit rate and the kill rate from rifle fire is extremely low. Most people killed on the battlefield in those days were killed by cannon fire, stuff like that, right? And so what they learned was, the only conclusion they could come to is that most people were like, at least unconsciously, shooting over the heads of the enemy because they saw them as other human beings. Well, the army took that research and figured out how to get really, really good at teaching people how to kill other people, right? They trained instinctive shooting. So the first they would have targets pop up and then instinctively somebody would pull the trigger. Then they made those targets shaped like human beings and they would pop up and then somebody would pull the trigger. What they didn't get good at was treating those people for PTSD, treating those people um, psychologically for the ramifications of killing another human being. And in my opinion, that's why we have huge suicide rates among veterans in the US. Um, we have it's part of the reason why we have so much drug addiction, alcoholism, that sort of thing. There's a lot going on there. We are not good at helping people who have been forced into a situation where they are causing other human beings harm. So beyond the karmic aspect, yeah, I think they're actually psychically psychologically doing harm to people if they are harming. Yeah, it does. It does depend on the individual intention for sure. Right. So, if I were a remote viewer working for the government and they were like, we're trying to protect the country and we want you to spy on this missile silo to see what they're doing to make sure they're not preparing to launch a missile or something along those lines. I can make an argument that I'm not really harming anybody there, right? I'm really trying to help keep people in my country safe. I'm not directly causing anybody to die. Hopefully, maybe I'm saving lives. Finding a downed plane somewhere, maybe that's helpful. So yeah, I mean, it depends on the individual intention. However, people who are in classified services in the military, they're not allowed to choose their mission. They're not allowed to choose their target. They're not allowed to choose the outcomes, right? So I don't know. I mean, it's a really sticky area. It's why I don't do that stuff. Um, Interesting. I would like to hear more about that for sure. Psychokinesis practitioner, and how that started becoming egoic and that sort of thing. Very interesting that in exploring psychic phenomena, um, like precognition and stuff like that. Using in some of the scientific experiments they've done using random number generation machines that actually physically generate random numbers. Um, they actually figured out that instead of predicting the outcomes, people, they thought, oh, these people are really good at guessing the outcomes of these random number generators. They were actually affecting the random number generators, and they were affecting them backwards in time. So there's actually a psychokinetic effect as opposed to a strict psychic effect. It's pretty interesting. Um, yeah. Yeah. So so there are things that we will never know the truth about that happen within governments. For example, I was just listening to, there's a great podcast series. I think there are 8 episodes, Who Killed JFK, that was produced by Rob Reiner and Soledad O'Brien. And I was just listening to that, and um, documents, evidence about the JFK assassination is still coming out. Now, that's 50 years ago. 50 years ago, I think in December, that happened. And we still don't have everything. And there's stuff that will never come out because it was destroyed. And it is without a doubt, you know, um, without a doubt, there was a conspiracy. In fact, the government found, the Congress found there was a conspiracy, and they still didn't have all. The Congress didn't have all of the evidence. There are still at least 5,000 classified documents in the JFK assassination, and you got to wonder why they're still classifying these documents. So a lot of that will come out, but a lot of it was destroyed, and yeah, I mean, because of that, there's a lot of conjecture in the podcast. We don't want to think. One of the really interesting things that came out, they were looking at the social implications of the JFK assassination and the Warren report, which was completely doctored. Completely, that was the first investigation that was done by the government. They started with a foredrawn conclusion. They're like, we need to have all of the evidence point to Lee Harvey Oswald being the only shooter. Lee Harvey Oswald, I don't think, was even a shooter, because he was seen like 60 seconds before the shooting and 90 seconds after the shooting on a different floor of the building eating his lunch, and by multiple people, and never crossed anybody in the stairwell. So don't believe he was the shooter. He was a patsy, and the evidence points that there are multiple shooters in multiple locations. So, um, and the podcast actually names who they think the shooters are. We'll never know for sure, probably, but um, yeah, yeah. um, but it's very interesting. But to know that there's stuff from 50 years ago, there's stuff from World War II that is still classified. There's why? What are they? What are they protecting? And who are they protecting it from? But yeah, I mean, I am 100% convinced that people in the U.S. government, in conjunction with, they were working with groups of Cuban exiles and the mafia, assassinated JFK. 100% sure. Dulles, who the airport in Texas was named after, um, was in on it, and general, I forget the general's name. There was a general in on it, but very few and very compartmentalized. So anyway, the government will never disclose everything that happened, and psychic spying only kind of came out, saying, "Oh, we don't do that anymore," but they do. You can be 100% sure of that, um, that they do. Um, yeah, yeah. So okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, so you want to become stronger. Yeah, and yeah, and what are you gonna? What are I sort of wonder. Psychokinetic stuff is very interesting to me. I've seen stuff move. I've had paranormal experiences where things moved in front of me, and other people. There were like 20 people in the room, and something moved on its own, and everybody but me was freaked out because it was happening to me very frequently. So it's interesting. It's a very interesting method, but yeah, I haven't thought of a really good use for that yet. I don't know, nudging. I was thinking of those things they have at the fairs where you drop quarters in and try to nudge the quarters off the shelf, and they drop and you win a little bit of money. Um, but that would be cheating. Or rolling dice, right? Rolling dice in the casino, can you make them come up in a certain way? I did read about people who are using remote viewing for gambling, and predicting the stock market and that sort of thing. And I don't know that I'd be, as an interesting experiment, that's kind of cool, but I don't know I'd be interested in that sort of thing. It seems, I don't know. I guess I don't know if it's cheating or not. People use AI for predicting the stock market these days, and um, yeah, yeah, it's very easy to, yeah. So proving that there's more to life than what we see is fairly straightforward. It's pretty easy. You don't have to get too deep into, to have that experience. Happened rather rapidly for me. I've had a lot of what people would consider paranormal or supernatural experiences throughout my life. I don't think, like, I don't love describing them as paranormal or supernatural because I think they're really normal, just most people aren't aware of them. And B, I don't think they're supernatural. I think they're natural. We just don't have necessarily physics-based explanations for them. So, I've seen lots and lots of things. I've seen people do things that defy explanation from a materialist physics perspective. And maybe someday physics will be able to explain all of these phenomena, right? Like, our physics has a hard time explaining consciousness. In fact, it's considered one of the most difficult problems in science to describe consciousness. Consciousness, is not just a product of electrons firing in the brain. There are electrons firing in the charger for my laptop. That doesn't make it conscious, right? Although there is consciousness in everything and around everything and that sort of thing, but it doesn't make it have a subjective experience in the way that I have a human subjective experience. Like that electrons passing through it doesn't explain that, right? A tree that gets hit by lightning has consciousness, but that's not coming from the lightning. It's everything is conscious. Maybe one day we'll be able to explain that with physics, how, consciousness is some product of quantum entanglement. And um, if you think about the Big Bang, right? Everything in this universe was a single particle, infinitesimally small particle at one point, and then it exploded and created the physical universe of trillions, a couple of trillion galaxies, each with billions of stars, each star with potentially multiple planets, and each planet with one or more moons. um you know it's mind-boggling to try to grasp that, but everything came from one thing. Everything, like on a physical level, everything came from source. And the emerald tablet says that as above so below, and I take that to mean, I interpret that as above so below. That which is above are like that which is below, is referring to above meaning spirit, the spiritual realm, and below being the physical realm. And so everything coming from a single source physically implies that everything came from a single source spiritually, right? And that consciousness has a single source. To me anyway, that's my interpretation. So anyway, I've actually gone about 15 minutes over my planned talk. We've gone off on lots of different tangents, but it's been fun, and I hope that's been enjoyable. And once again, every time I do things, every time I do one of these, I learn stuff from everybody who joins. Thank everybody for their contributions and for joining today. And if you're watching this and you're not subscribed to the channel, and you want to be tuned in to when more of these happen, you can subscribe to the channel, and there's that bell thing that you can click on, and it'll give you, if you're not annoyed by notifications, you'll get a notification when I go live on this channel, or when there are new videos and stuff. So thanks. I'm glad you were able to join. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe either a typo or some lingo that I don't understand. But yes, thank you for joining. And yeah, I enjoy doing these as well. And this is one of, I'll say this rather briefly before I sign it. I have a lot of people who contact me, multiple people every week, asking for like free teaching or free healing sessions or whatever. And I can't do that. Like I pay, I have a mortgage and a car payment and children, very expensive, and they're both going off to college next year. So I can't afford to take on a whole bunch of free clients as much as I would like to. I would if we were living in a tribal culture where the shaman was taken care of by the tribe, uh, yeah, absolutely. But I can't take on students and clients for free. I just can't, and particularly with the volume of people who are asking me for free teaching and stuff. So this is one of the ways that I do that. One of the ways that I teach for free is that I do YouTube videos, and I write blog posts, and I do these lives, and I get to interact with people. But also, more than that, is that I really, really enjoy these, and I really enjoy talking to people, and I always learn stuff every single time I come on here. People tell me something. So, oh, you're very welcome, and thank you. And you're very welcome. Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. I hope to have my time for work, like classes. I'm not going to release a class before it's absolutely what I need it to be, what I expect it to be, and what I want it to be. I'm not saying I'm a perfectionist, but I take teaching very, very seriously. It's incredibly important to me that what I'm teaching is unique and valuable and true, at least to me, to the people that are doing it. It takes me a while to put stuff together. I don't, there's all these people out there like, you can put out a class in an afternoon and use AI to write your classes and all that stuff. I'm not using AI to write my classes. And I need to, there's technology involved and stuff. So it takes me a while. So don't hold your breath, but stuff is coming out. Hopefully it'll be a 28. The next thing that I'm working on is a 28-day course in called Energy Body Alchemy, where we'll be doing energy body work, doing transformative energy body work, walking through the stages of alchemy with the energy body. And there'll be like an email every day with an exercise or something to do. There'll be multiple live Zoom calls where we'll be working live, and there will be video and instruction for the different exercises and things. So there's a lot for me to put together, which I'm working on right now, but that seemed to be what everybody was interested in. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And I do like to sign off by saying I love you. And I do, like, I mean that. And I mean that from, sounds weird. Like in English, we only have one word for love. In Persian, there's something like 85 words for love. In Sanskrit, there's something like 30 different words for love. And I often comment that I can love my girlfriend, I can love my children, and I can love cheeseburgers. Those are not the same things. So the word love is really weird, but I do love you guys. I do love you, and I love that you joined. And by love, I mean I accept you who you are, and you come in here and just share and be who you are. And how do you get on my email list? So you can go to my website, which is maine Shaman SHAMAN.com. And there is a sign up for my email list. I will tell you that I'm really bad I don't send out a lot of email. I realize that, some email lists you subscribe to, you're getting email every day. And that's not me. I'm getting party people. If you get an email from me once a month, that would be really frequent. But if you're on my email list, you will get informed when I've got new classes coming out or something big is going on. I was the end of last year, I was interviewed for a documentary about dreams. And when I hear anything about when and where that's coming out, I'm going to let everybody know, because I'm excited about that. I mean, not just because I'm in it, but the actual material of the documentary. Like I was talking, when I was talking to the producer, I'm like, everybody I've talked to is excited about this documentary. They had me and probably lots of other spiritual people in there. They had neuroscientists talking about dreaming, psychologists, Jungian psychoanalysts, all kinds of people talking about dreams. So I'm absolutely fascinated by the documentary when it comes out. So the daily exercise in the email. Yeah, that'll be part of this course, this energy body course. So when that comes out, I will make an announcement. And I am doing my best to keep that as affordable as possible for people. And I'll also limit the class size. I haven't determined how big that will be yet, because it's my first time doing it. And I want to make sure like nobody falls through the cracks, anybody's having issues. So there'll be all kinds of like, there'll be like a private Facebook group for people to seek support and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm excited to see it too. So I'll make, there will be announcements about that when it comes out. So, and I don't know, I think it's slated for like 12 episodes, something like that. And I don't know how many episodes I'll be in. So what happens with these things, if you ever watch one of those shows where it's basically talking heads, like History Channel, Discovery Channel, that sort of thing, and they're interviewing people and then they cut away for reenactments, that's what this is going to be like. And so I sat there for 2 hours answering questions. And so they're going to chop that up into little bitty pieces. And whether that all happens in one episode or is spread throughout a number of episodes, I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, love you all. I gotta run. I gotta call my daughter before she goes to her driving exam. And think good thoughts, project good thoughts towards my daughter. Her name is Sophia, and she's going for her driver's license test this morning. So, love you all. We'll talk soon. Stay tuned.